What if I told you that everything you've been taught about motivation is a lie? That the very thing you're chasing is designed to fail you? You feel it, don't you? Those moments when motivation floods your body and then vanishes without a trace, like smoke through your fingers. Here's the truth. Most gurus won't tell you. Motivation isn't your ally. It's your enemy disguised as a friend. Ever notice how motivation shows up exactly when you don't need it? You're scrolling at midnight, watching someone transform their life, and suddenly you're ready to conquer the world. At 12:37 a.m. on a Tuesday. But where is that same energy at 6 a.m. when your alarm goes off? It disappeared. Again, look around you. How many people do you know who are consistently motivated? Not many, because motivation isn't reliable. It's not sustainable. It's a fair weather friend that abandons you exactly when you need it most. Today, I'm breaking down the 5 critical reasons motivation always fails you, and the one psychological shift that changes everything. This isn't about working harder. It's about understanding how your mind actually operates. Let's get into it. Motivation is pure emotion. And what happens to emotions? They change. One day you're on fire, the next day you're cold as ice. Think about it. You don't brush your teeth because you're motivated to. You do it because it's non-negotiable. No one stands in front of the mirror giving themselves a pep talk about dental hygiene. You just do it. It's automatic. It's identity-based. The problem isn't your willpower. It's that you've been sold a fantasy. Success doesn't come from motivation. It comes from systems that work when motivation doesn't. Let me show you what I mean. See that guy in the corner? The one showing up at 5 a.m. day after day. He's not motivated every morning. He built a system that doesn't require motivation. He's not special. He's not superhuman. He just understands something most people don't. Most people wait for motivation to strike like lightning. They're waiting for a force outside themselves to move them into action. But that's like waiting for the weather to change so you can live your life. It's backwards. It's reactionary. And it puts you at the mercy of factors you can't control. Did you know there's an entire industry built around keeping you in the motivation cycle? Think about it. What happens after you consume motivational content? You feel good, energized, ready. But what happens next matters more. Most people mistake that feeling for actual progress, so they chase the feeling again and again instead of doing the work. It's not your fault. The motivation industry needs repeat customers. They need you coming back for another hit of inspiration, another boost, another temporary high. But nobody tells you that this cycle is exactly what prevents real change. When was the last time a motivational video included detailed instructions on building sustainable habits? Exactly. They sell you on how you should feel, not what you should do, and there's a massive difference between the two. Your environment will always overpower your intentions. Let that sink in. You can have all the motivation in the world, but if your phone is next to your bed, you'll check it before doing anything meaningful. If junk food is in your kitchen, willpower doesn't stand a chance. The design of your life dictates your decisions far more than your momentary motivation ever will. Motivation focuses on you while ignoring everything around you. That's like trying to drive with the emergency brake on, then blaming yourself for not going faster. The most successful people I know don't have more motivation. They've mastered their environment. They remove friction from positive behaviors and add friction to negative ones. They understand that willpower isn't about white-knuckling through temptation. It's about eliminating the temptation in the first place. When you rely on motivation, you're fighting against the current of your environment. But when you design your environment, you create a current that carries you. One approach depletes you, the other propels you. Here's something nobody talks about. Motivation creates the expectation that you should feel good while doing hard things. Think about that for a second. Real growth happens when you continue despite not feeling like it, when you acknowledge the discomfort and move forward anyway. Every significant achievement in history came from someone who kept going when motivation had long since disappeared. You think Olympic athletes feel motivated during every 5 a.m. training session? You think successful entrepreneurs feel inspired during every late-night grind? Of course not. The champions in any field aren't the ones who feel motivated all the time. They're the ones who develop the ability to function without it. They understand that motivation is the result of action, not the cause of it. Let me repeat that because it's crucial. Motivation doesn't create action. Action creates motivation. Ask any professional athlete, entrepreneur, or artist about their process. They'll tell you about the thousands of hours when motivation was nowhere to be found, but they showed up anyway. That's the difference between amateur and professional, between dabbler and master, between dreamer and achiever. Amateurs wait until they feel right. Professionals do what needs to be done, regardless of how they feel. And here's the irony. Taking action is what eventually produces the feeling of motivation, not the other way around. Motivation is obsessed with results, the before and after, the zero to hero, the rags to riches. But success isn't built in those dramatic moments. It's built in the quiet, unsexy middle, in the daily grind that nobody sees, in the small choices that compound over time. When you're motivated by outcomes, you miss the most important part, the daily process that actually creates change. The process isn't glamorous, it's not Instagram worthy, but it's everything. Success is boring. It's showing up when others don't. It's doing the small things consistently that most people do occasionally. Let me ask you something. When you look at someone who's achieved what you want, are you willing to adopt their daily habits? Not just for a week or a month, but for years. Because that's the real price of achievement, not motivation, consistency. So what's the alternative? If motivation is the problem, what's the solution? Here it is. Stop chasing motivation. Start building identity-based systems. Instead of, I want to lose weight, which requires constant motivation, shift to, I am someone who moves daily. Instead of, I need to write more, shift to, I am a writer, and writers write, even when they don't feel like it. This changes everything, because your identity drives your behavior far more powerfully than your motivation ever could. Think about it this way. You don't need motivation to be yourself. You just are yourself. When your actions stem from identity, motivation becomes irrelevant. You don't need motivation to be yourself. This is why people who say, I don't eat sugar, have an easier time than people who say, I'm trying not to eat sugar. One comes from identity. The other requires constant willpower. One is decisive. The other is tentative. Here's how you make this practical. First, define who you want to become. Not what you want to achieve. Who you want to be. What kind of person gets the results you want? How do they think? How do they act? What do they believe about themselves? Second, identify the smallest possible actions that person would take daily, not occasionally, not when they feel like it. Daily, consistency compounds, and small actions, done consistently, create massive change over time. Third, design your environment to make those actions inevitable. Remove barriers, create triggers, build routines that happen automatically without requiring decision or debate. The most powerful approach I've found is the 1% rule. Improve by just 1% each day. Make your habits so small that they're impossible to fail at. Can't meditate for 20 minutes? Do jedna minuta. Can't write for an hour? Write one sentence. Can't do a full workout? Do one push-up. You might think these actions are too small to matter, but that's precisely why they work. They're too small to fail at, too small to require motivation. But they reinforce your new identity with every repetition. And here's the secret. Once you start, you'll often continue. One push-up becomes 10. One sentence becomes a paragraph. 1 minute becomes 5. The point isn't the quantity. It's reinforcing your new identity through consistent action. And these small wins create momentum. They build confidence. They generate evidence that you are becoming the person you want to be. This is how real change happens. Not through motivation, but through identity-based systems that function regardless of how you feel. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can achieve in a year. Small actions, repeated consistently, create exponential results over time. Just like compound interest in finance, compound habits in life create returns that seem miraculous in retrospect. But there's nothing miraculous about them. They're the predictable outcome of consistent small improvements. Look at anyone who's maintained a significant change for years, not just weeks or months. They don't rely on motivation. They've built systems and reshaped their identity. They don't try to eat healthy. They are healthy eaters. They don't try to exercise. They are athletes. They don't try to write. They are writers. The shift is subtle but profound. Let me ask you something. What would change if you stopped waiting to feel motivated and simply became the type of person who does what needs to be done? What if, instead of trying to find motivation, you built a life that doesn't require it? What if you committed to identity-level change instead of motivation-dependent goals? Motivation is for amateurs. Systems are for professionals. The most successful people aren't more motivated. They're more structured. They don't rise to the level of their aspirations. They fall to the level of their systems. This isn't just theory. This is how real, lasting transformation happens. Not through occasional bursts of motivation, but through consistent identity-reinforcing actions. So ask yourself, who do you want to become? Then build the environment and the tiny habits that make that identity inevitable. That's how you win the game that motivation will always lose. That's how you create change that lasts. Not by feeling your way into new actions, but by acting your way into new feelings. Not by waiting until you're ready, but by starting before you feel ready and letting the action create the readiness. This is the approach that has transformed my life and the lives of thousands I've worked with. It's not flashy, it's not exciting in the moment, but it works. Consistently, reliably, when motivation has long since vanished. If this shifted your perspective, hit that subscribe button. This channel is about building real systems, not temporary motivation. I'm not here to make you feel good for 5 minutes. I'm here to help you become good for the rest of your life. Until next time, remember, you don't need to feel good to take action. You need to take action to feel good.